Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 145th episode of In TV Talk. On this episode, I am going to be discussing and giving my thoughts on the Hobbit Trilogy. Remember, there will be spoilers, so let's get into it. So given that these movies are around the 10-plus-year-old mark, I don't really think I need to summarize the plot here. I'm pretty sure most people here know the story of the journey that Bilbo Baggins and a company of dwarves take to reclaim the Lonely Mountain from the dragon known as Smaug, right? Good. That being the case, I am going to go directly into the what did I think of the Hobbit trilogy part. I've watched these movies many times. I've seen them in both of their formats. I saw them in theaters as they released in the theatrical cuts, and I saw them on Blu-ray in their extended cuts as well. It's very safe to say that I prefer the extended cut as they make the trilogy feel more like a complete story, and that is what I personally want to see. However, I firmly believe and agree that these movies did not need extended versions, and they never needed to be a trilogy in the first place. It is easy to say that these movies are incredibly bloated. Doing the most surface level of research will reveal just how much that the filmmakers added to this trilogy that either was not in the book or was not a big deal in the book. Now, I've never read the book myself, but from what I gather online, the book focuses on the journey of Bilbo Baggins and the company of dwarves, with anything else being extremely minor background dressing. The best example of this is pretty much everything to do with Gandalf, as these parts in the book never stood out to be as noticeable as they are in the film trilogy. To me, the filmmakers took The Hobbit as being a prequel to Lord of the Rings so literally they felt that the trilogy needs to set up everything to come in Lord of the Rings, so they made all the stuff that Gandalf and Radagast, just all of that, stick out so much, like to signal to the audience, like, hey, remember this character from Lord of the Rings? Remember this? I also know that our Pale Orc was, like, not the main villain of the book either. He was there, but not as much as is in the movies. Pretty much everything relating to the Pale Orc felt like more bloat in the trilogy as well. I mean, having to show us this big army battle between the orcs and the dwarves in Moria just, again, feels like it's more set up as to why Moria is the way it is in The Lord of the Rings, and it feels really forced and bloated to add that to these movies. Again, the point is to focus on Bilbo and crew. You didn't need to spend so much time showing us this battle that took place. Thorin spends a lot of this flashback narrating it. Why not just make it more of like a campfire story that Thorin just tells to Bilbo? It felt to me that without the Pale Orc, they thought there would be like no central villain for our group. I don't think that's how they should have looked at it, though. The group goes through so many hurdles in their journey that making the Pale Orc being this like recurring hurdle wasn't necessary at all to me. Of course, I can't talk about this trilogy without mentioning the stupid love triangle with the elf character that did not even exist in the book and was a completely new creation for the film trilogy that was just as stupid of a character to add to an already bloated trilogy. Yes, Ariel is just an absolutely stupid character that did not need to exist at all. In this so-called love triangle, it's stupid. For some reason, Legolas is into her, though he never really makes a move of any kind or shows any indication that he has any feelings for her. Like, when she gets banished, Legolas goes and tells the king, well, if you're gonna banish her, you're gonna have to banish me as well. But, like, personally, I don't count that as communicating how he feels to her. Maybe I'm the dumb one here, I don't know. But then Tariel has feelings for one of the dwarves. I can't even be bothered to remember the name of this guy. But these feelings only come from, like, a moment that the two share when the dwarves are locked up in the Wood Elf castle. After that, the two barely get a chance to speak or really do anything to further the relationship, even with the Wood Elf King, like, at one point tells Tariel that, oh, you're not really in love. But then in the third film, this dwarf guy gets killed. Tariel questions, why does it hurt so much? And the king's like, well, because your feelings were real. Which is stupid, because the relationship had no growth, no development. So yeah, no, the feelings were not real, and they never existed at all. Sure, she did heal him when they were having troubles in Lake Town, but even after that, the two just didn't interact, and their relationship didn't grow, and the whole thing is stupid, and Tariel should not have existed in the first place. I think, obviously, that one of the biggest problems with this trilogy is they spent too much time trying to make The Hobbit be Lord of the Rings yet again. From what I've seen and heard from people who have read the book, The Hobbit is more of an intimate story, and I've said this a number of times already. An intimate story that just focuses on Bilbo and the dwarves, with everything else being background stuff. So to me, having all these big army battles and the distraction of what Gandalf and the others are doing that is really just set up for the Lord of the Rings movies is really unnecessary. This is the biggest reason why these movies are so bloated and have so much unnecessary stuff added to them. And it's the biggest reason that it is a trilogy in the first place, when it could have been at most maybe 2 movies? Maybe? Personally, one of the biggest disappointments is Smaug. They spent 2 movies really building up Smaug as being a major threat. And when, when they do reach the Lonely Mountain, yeah, they have a big chase or fight sequence with Smaug in the second movie at the end of it. But it doesn't really feel like Smaug lives up to all the build-up. In the third movie doesn't help. They kill off Smaug in the first 12 minutes of the movie, and it really doesn't feel, or it feels really anticlimactic, and it just never sat well with me, especially as someone who has seen these movies when they released in theaters, like as they released. Having to wait a whole year just to have Smaug get killed really quickly didn't help things. And it still doesn't sit well with me doing this in like a movie marathon setting either. I'm sure that at this point you're probably wondering if there's anything good about this trilogy, since I've spent a lot of time just kind of bitching about everything, and like, yeah, there's a few good things about the trilogy. I do appreciate that they continued doing as much of the movies and characters with real practical stuff, as that's something I really appreciate in this era of very heavy CGI movies, Marvel. The performances from the cast are all great, and the music from Howard Shore is as good as the music in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, especially the extended scores, which I prefer that. Now, is there anything good about the actual movies themselves? The thing that I like the most is when they finally deal with Smaug and are searching for the Arkenstone. Basically all the stuff with Thorin displaying the effects of and eventually overcoming dragon sickness, which was a nice touch for the character. I mean, I don't know if that was something that was added to the movies or just something that was really fleshed out, that was like really surface level in the books. I don't know. If it's the case, this is the one time that I don't think I would care, because I think it was really necessary for Thorin to show some kind of development. in the whole of the movie. Especially with what he says to Bilbo when he does eventually die. That's really the only positive stuff I can highlight from this whole trilogy. That doesn't mean it's bad, just kind of neutral. Plus, for as much as I complain, I do like these movies, and I do enjoy watching them, especially in the extended versions, which, as I've said, really round out the story despite making them even more bloated. Plus, you can't have a Lord of the Rings movie marathon without including these. Okay, well, you can, but I prefer to do all 6 movies personally. But despite their flaws, The Hobbit is still a good and enjoyable trilogy of films. And that's going to do it for this episode, so if you like this kind of content, feel free to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.